Hi, I'm here to tell you how to never have to work a day in your life by applying your passions and hobbies to the real world. You see, when you're passionate about something, you tend to follow it and you apply it to future endeavors. But hobbies are just that fun little thing that we all have, we all enjoy, and we all learn a lot about. So, wouldn't it be great if we could just follow our hobbies past the basic, and if we perfected them and became more advanced in them? You see, I personally had many hobbies over the years, and I can tell you from personal experience that when you have a hobby for long enough, you start to find these real-world applications to everyday things. For instance, yo-yoing. I love to yo-yo, and I almost always have a yo-yo with me. It's become a bit of an obsession, but the good kind. See, but yo-yoing is important because it's taught me a lot about fundamental scientific principles. Things like potential and kinetic energy. Potential is the yo-yo in my hand. Kinetic when it hits the bottom of the string. Linear and angular momentum. Linear, the yo-yo moving outwards. Angular, spinning at the bottom of the string. And one of the most important is friction, which is how the yo-yo comes up. And these principles, they apply to all yo-yos. And when I say that they apply to all yo-yos, I mean there's a different picture that comes to mind when most people think of a yo-yo compared to when I do. You see, most people think of this, the cheap dollar store yo-yo. Although this thing's awesome, as far as tricks go for them, you can pretty much, throw it down normally, forward toss, around the world with enough practice, and that's about it. But when I think of yo-yo, I think of this. What makes this different is wider, unresponsive, which means it won't come back up easily, and it can do some different tricks like this. Fun, right? You see, now this is great, but what are those real-world applications? We could always start a yo-yo designing company, or just use what you learned as a gateway into a career as a mechanical engineer, or just entertain for extra cash. I mean, that's what I'm doing, and they're an amazing conversation starter, the best I've ever used, and they really are just that fun. But yo-yoing isn't the only hobby I've had over the years. I also solved Rubik's Cubes as a hobby for a while. I solved 3x3s, 2x2s, these somewhat strange pyramid-shaped cubes, and more weird things like this. You see, but Rubik's Cubes are also important because they teach you about patterns. So when I solved the Rubik's Cube for long enough, I started to realize there are patterns to what the cube will do. And when I started to notice these patterns, I could apply them and start to solve the cube faster. And these patterns are important in the real world. Take, for instance, in math. You see, complex mathematical algorithms can be insanely difficult to solve unless you realize that there are these patterns that each algorithm has. You see, and another pattern-based thing would be computer science and coding. See, once you realize there are patterns in a string of code, you can debug your code faster, just code faster overall, and it just makes it easier. Another slightly less nerdy hobby I've had over the years is origami. I love folding paper, and I've been doing it for 7 years, which means I went past this, your average crane, which, in all honesty, isn't that cool. I mean, it doesn't even fly. What I did is I started to get into more complex models with real-world applications, models like this. I know, looks like I crumpled a big piece of construction paper and put rubber bands around it. But what you may not have noticed is once the rubber bands are off, this thing has some pretty unique qualities. Take, for instance, you're in space and you need to send something into space that has to be small and compact so that it's easy to send, but has to be large enough that it can actually do what it's supposed to do. It can fulfill its purpose. You can just fold that up multiple times if it's a solar cell and spend hours unfolding it, or use something like this, something that expands and contracts easily. You see, an example of advancement origamis made in the real world already is U of M's own Max Stein, a researcher who focuses on kirigami, which is a form of origami. So you think that's a weird field to study. I mean, why is he studying how to fold paper? But once you realize that what he's done has led to the creation of a smart, lightweight, sun-tracking solar cell that gets 36% more energy than a normal one, you start to think, hey, origami's cool. Another possible advancement origami may lead to comes from this. A really fun, unique origami contraption I've made that expands and contracts easily and has amazing torsional strength. So let's imagine again, you're in space for the second time for some reason, and you need to connect a satellite to a space station. Well, you could, but you can't let them twist or they'll lose orientation. You could just use a huge, expensive spline shaft designed not to turn and still move in and out, or this. It'd be lightweight, it'd be cheap, and it'd look way cooler. Now, you don't just need to take the 12-year-old's word for it who has literally never worked a day in his life. You can follow the example of a very famous, successful man. He was an ambulance driver during World War I for France before becoming an editor at a newspaper. He was promptly fired for lack of creativity and having no good ideas. So he followed his hobby, his passion of drawing, and started a company. And if you can't tell who I'm talking about, I'll let you in on the secret. Walt Disney. That's right, the man who created some of the most famous characters that we all know and love today was fired for a lack of creativity. The man who created one of the largest, most successful companies ever was fired for no good ideas. And thank goodness he followed his hobby, otherwise we wouldn't have Donald Duck. You see, if we just started looking for the real-world applications in our passions and hobbies, we can all become successful doing things we always do, things we love. Your hobby can become a passion, so can yours, so can all of ours. Thank goodness mine too, and good ones at that. And that's awesome, that's important, because if you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life. Thank you.